The silver walls of Unity Station's diplomatic chamber reflected the anxious movements of Ambassador Zix as he floated through the entrance. His 6 tentacles curled and uncurled in a pattern that his species, the Vexari, recognized as extreme distress. The usually vibrant purple and blue patterns on his skin had faded to dull grays and browns. Zix had traveled farther than any Vexari before him, crossing half the galaxy to reach this station orbiting Earth's moon. Every other species had turned them away. The mighty Altarians had laughed at their request. The logical Zentari had shown them mathematical proofs of why their plan was impossible. Even the compassionate Melodians had sadly shaken their heads. Now only the humans remained. Captain Sam Rodriguez stood at the far end of the chamber, his broad shoulders squared in the crisp blue uniform of Earth's Space Force. Beside him, Ambassador Kate Johnson adjusted her diplomatic sash, her brown eyes studying the approaching alien with curiosity rather than fear. Where other species saw the Vexari's writhing tentacles and color-shifting skin as disturbing, humans found it fascinating. Ambassador Zix of the Vexari Collective announced the station's AI in its neutral tone. Meeting with human representatives Captain Rodriguez and Ambassador Johnson, Zix floated to a stop before the humans, his translator disc glowing softly as it converted his bioelectric pulses into English. "Honored humans," he began, his tentacles drooping. "I come before you with the weight of my entire species on my shoulders." Sam stepped forward, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. After a moment's hesitation, Zix wrapped a tentacle around it. The human's grip was firm, but careful, mindful of the Vexari's more delicate physiology. "Welcome to Unity Station," Sam said. "We understand you've traveled a long way." 47 jumps, Zix confirmed, his skin flickering with exhaustion. "I have visited 19 species. All have refused us." Kate gestured to the conference table. "Please sit, or float. Whatever's comfortable. Tell us what's happening." Zix settled into the specially designed chair that accommodated various alien physiologies. His main eyes focused on the humans while his secondary eyes scanned the room. Nervously, "Our star is dying," he said simply. "Not in the slow way stars usually die over millions of years. Something has gone wrong in its core. Our scientists estimate we have less than 18 months before it goes critical." Sam and Kate exchanged glances. 18 months to evacuate. An entire species was a timeline that would challenge even humanity's notorious optimism. "The solar flares have already begun," Zix continued. "They've sterilized 3 of our 5 colony worlds. Only our homeworld and 1 colony remain habitable, and not for long. The radiation is increasing daily." "How many Vexari need evacuation?" Kate asked, already running calculations in her head. Zix's skin turned a deep blue, the color of despair. 3 billion souls. Adults, children, eggs that haven't hatched yet. Our entire civilization. The number hung in the air like a physical weight. 3 billion. Most species would have declared it impossible immediately. Sam leaned back in his chair, his face thoughtful rather than dismissive. "That's a lot of people. What did the Galactic Council say?" "They held an emergency session," Zix replied, his tentacles curling in what humans had learned was the Vexari equivalent of bitter laughter. "They debated for 3 days. Their conclusion was that we should prepare our species for extinction, with dignity. They offered to send cultural preservation teams to record our history before we die." "And you didn't accept that," Kate observed. "Would you?" Zix's main eyes fixed on her. Would humans simply lie down and die because others deemed survival impossible? Kate smiled slightly. "No, we probably wouldn't. That's why I'm here," Zix said, his skin pattern shifting to show desperate hope. "Every species knows about humans. You evolved on a death world, a planet that should have killed you 1,000 times over. You have hurricanes that can destroy, cities, earthquakes that reshape landscapes, and predators that hunt in packs. Yet you not only survived but thrived. Don't forget the volcanoes," Sam added with a wry smile. "And tornadoes. Australia alone has creatures that seem designed specifically to kill humans. Exactly. Zix's tentacles waved excitedly. Any sensible species would have died out or never evolved intelligence in such conditions. But humans? You built cities, in earthquake zones. You live in places where water freezes solid for months. You've sent expeditions to your planet's poles where the temperature can kill in minutes. Kate chuckled. When you put it like that, we do sound a bit crazy. Crazy. Enough to attempt the impossible, Zix said, leaning forward. Your species went from first flight to landing on your moon in less than 70 years. You built space stations while still fighting wars on your planet's surface. You terraform worlds that others consider worthless. The Mars project was pretty ambitious, Sam admitted. Took us 80 years to make it fully habitable. And that's why I've come to you, Zix continued. Not because evacuating 3 billion Vexari is possible. Everyone agrees it's not. I've come because humans have a disturbing habit of doing impossible things simply because someone said they couldn't. Sam stood up and walked to the window overlooking Earth. The blue-green planet hung in space, surrounded by the lights of orbital installations, shipyards, and defense platforms. 3 billion beings, each needing specialized life support, food, shelter. We'd need ships unlike anything anyone's built before. The logistics alone would be staggering, Kate added. Transport ships, supply chains, refugee processing, temporary housing while finding a new world. Zix's skin rippled with anxiety. I understand if you refuse. Every other species has. The Altarians said the resource cost would bankrupt any civilization that tried. The Zentari showed me mathematical models proving it would take 50 years to build enough ships. Sam turned from the window, and Zix saw something in the human's eyes that he'd seen nowhere else in his journey. Not dismissal, not pity, but consideration, as if the human was actually weighing the challenge rather than rejecting it outright. The Zentari's math assumes standard construction methods, Sam said slowly. Humans rarely do things the standard way. Kate stood up, her datapad all ready, in hand. We'll need to consult with our government and our engineers. This would be the largest undertaking in human history. But you're not saying no, Zix breathed, hardly daring to hope. Sam grinned. The expression that Zix had learned meant humans were about to do something either brilliant or insane. Often both. Ambassador Zix, humans have a saying. The difficult, we do immediately. The impossible takes a little longer. Give us 48 hours, Kate added. We'll present your case to Earth's unity government and see what our engineers say about turning impossible into merely extremely difficult. Zix's skin blazed with brilliant purples and golds, colors of hope his species hadn't displayed since the crisis began. You're really considering this? Even knowing what everyone else has said? Especially knowing what everyone else has said, Sam replied. Humans have never been good at accepting conventional wisdom about what's impossible. As Zix left the chamber, his tentacles moving with renewed energy, he allowed himself to hope. He had found the one species in the galaxy insane enough to look at an impossible task and say, let's see what we can do. Behind him, Sam and Kate were already pulling up holographic displays, their minds racing with possibilities. Because that's what humans did when faced with the impossible. They rolled up their sleeves and got to work. The Earth Unity government's emergency session had been running for 6 straight hours. In the massive holographic chamber, representatives from every nation floated in their virtual seats, their faces showing a mixture of disbelief and excitement. Admiral Lisa Chen stood at the center, her silver hair pulled back in a tight bun, her uniform crisp despite the long hours. Around her, dozens of holographic displays showed numbers, ship designs, and resource calculations that would have made any other species dismiss the project immediately. 3 billion lives, Lisa said, her voice cutting through the murmur of conversations. That's what we're talking about, not statistics, not numbers on a screen. 3 billion individuals who will die if we do nothing. President Laura Washington leaned forward from her position at the head of the assembly. Admiral Chen, the logistics alone are staggering. Our entire merchant fleet numbers less than 5,000 ships. We would need 27,000 ships minimum, Colonel Mike Williams interrupted, stepping forward with his datapad. If we use standard passenger configurations, but we're not talking about using standard anything. The assembly fell, silent. Mike was known for his unconventional solutions to military logistics problems. During the Mars Rebellion, he'd managed to supply isolated colonies using mining drones reprogrammed as cargo carriers. Explain, the president ordered. Mike waved his hand and new holographic models appeared. Standard passenger ships are built for comfort, safety redundancy, and long-term habitation. We don't need any of that. We need boxes that can hold atmosphere and move from point A to point B. Nothing fancy. Dr. Amy Parker, Earth's leading xenobiologist, stood up from her position among the scientific advisors. The Vexari can survive in minimal conditions for the journey. They enter a hibernation state when stressed. We could pack them much tighter than human passengers. How tight? Lisa asked. Amy pulled up biological scans of Vexari physiology. In hibernation, they need 1/10 the space of an active individual. Their tentacles retract, their metabolism slows. We could fit 1,000 Vexari in the space normally used for 100 humans. Chief Engineer Paul Martinez had been scribbling calculations on his tablet. Now he looked up, his eyes bright with the kind of excitement that came from facing an impossible challenge. If we strip everything non-essential, no recreation areas, no individual quarters, just basic life support and hibernation pods, we could cut the required ships to 8,000. 8,000 ships in 12 months? The representative from the African Union shook her head. Our best shipyards can produce maybe 40 ships a year. Paul's grin widened. Using traditional methods, yes. But remember the Titan crisis? When the colony's air processors failed? Several representatives nodded. During the Titan crisis 5 years ago, humanity had faced the potential loss of their largest outer system colony. The solution had been unprecedented. We built modular components, Paul continued. Instead of constructing complete ships, we built standardized pieces. Engines, hull sections, life support modules. Then we assembled them like giant building blocks. We saved Titan in 3 months instead of the projected 2 years. Lisa turned to face the full assembly. I propose we use the same approach. Every shipyard, every manufacturing facility, every orbital platform focuses on one type of component. The Luna yards build engines. Mars handles hull sections. The asteroid factories produce life support systems. The Belters won't like their factories being commandeered, someone muttered. The Belters hate being told what to do, Mike agreed. But they hate letting people die even more. I've already had preliminary talks with their union leaders. If we pay fair prices and guarantee their workers' overtime rates, they're in. President Washington studied the projections. What about the Galactic Council? They've declared this impossible. They might try to stop us. Admiral Chen's expression hardened. Let them try. We're not asking for their permission. We're not using their resources. This is a human operation using human assets. The economic cost, began the representative from Europa, will be enormous. Finance Minister Alex Liu interrupted. Roughly equivalent to our entire military budget for the next 5 years. But spread across all Earth nations and colonies, it's manageable. More importantly, what's the cost of letting 3 billion sentients die when we could have saved them? The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the real question wasn't whether they could afford to help, it was whether they could afford not to. Dr. Amy Parker raised her hand. There's another factor to consider. The Vexari are silicon-based life forms with unique biotechnology. Their knowledge could advance our own science by decades. This isn't just a rescue mission, it's an investment in humanity's future. Assuming we can build the ships, the president said slowly, how do we get 3 billion beings onto them in time? The evacuation itself seems impossible. Captain Rodriguez, who had attended virtually from Unity Station, spoke up. The Vexari are highly organized. Their society functions like a massive neural network. When they commit to something, they move as one. Ambassador Zix assures me they can have their entire population at designated pickup points within days. And pilots? Someone asked. 8,000 ships need 8,000 crews. Mike pulled up personnel files. We have 12,000 certified interstellar pilots between the merchant marine and military. Add in retired pilots willing to return for this mission, and trainees we can fast-track, and we'll have enough. Lisa looked around the room, seeing the shift in expressions. What had started as skepticism was turning into determination. It was the same look she'd seen during the Mars terraforming project, during the Jupiter mining initiative, during every impossible task humanity had decided to tackle. "I need a vote," President Washington announced. "All in favor of launching Operation Exodus?" Hands rose around the chamber. One by one, every representative voted yes, some enthusiastically, others reluctantly, but all understanding that this was a defining moment for humanity. "Motion carried unanimously," the president declared. "Admiral Chen, you have overall command. Colonel Williams, you're in charge of logistics. Dr. Parker, medical and biological support. Chief Martinez, you're our head engineer. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 12 months to do the impossible." As the assembly dissolved into planning committees, Paul Martinez turned to Lisa. "You realize what we've just committed to? 8,000 ships, new technology, resources we don't have yet." Lisa smiled. "Sounds like a typical Tuesday for humans. Remember when they said we couldn't terraform Mars? Or when the Jupiter moons were too dangerous to colonize? This is bigger than all of that combined," Paul pointed out. "Yes," Lisa agreed, already pulling up shipyard capacity reports. "Isn't it exciting?" Across Earth's solar system, the message went out. Shipyards that had been building luxury cruisers retooled for cargo modules. Mining operations in the asteroid belt doubled their shifts. On Mars, the massive orbital foundries began producing hull plating at rates never before attempted. The Galactic Council sent concerned messages. The Altarians warned of economic collapse. The Zentari provided mathematical proofs of failure. Humanity ignored them all and got to work. In his guest quarters on Unity Station, Ambassador Zix watched the news feeds with growing amazement. The IG humans weren't just planning, they were already building. Construction crews worked around the clock. Design teams solved problems as they arose. When something proved impossible, they simply found another way. "You're all insane," he murmured to Sam Rodriguez, who had come to update him on progress. Sam laughed. "Maybe, but it's a useful kind of insanity. You'll see, in 12 months, we'll have your people safely evacuated." Zix's skin pattern swirled with hope. For the first time since their son began dying, he believed survival was possible. The humans had looked at impossible odds and responded with the most dangerous words in their vocabulary. Challenge accepted. The greatest rescue mission in galactic history had begun. The Mars orbital shipyard had never seen activity like this. Where once a dozen ships might be under construction, now there were hundreds of hull sections floating in organized chaos. Sparks flew from welding torches as workers in EVA suits swarmed over the growing structures like ants on a massive metal hill. Engineer Jake Anderson floated near hull section 47B, his tired eyes checking weld points through his helmet's display. He'd been on duty for 22 hours straight, but the thought of taking a break never crossed his mind. Every minute counted. "Jake, you're past your shift limit," Dr. Nina Roberts' voice crackled through his helmet comm. As the station's chief medical officer, she monitored all workers' health stats. "Just need to finish this section," Jake mumbled, blinking away fatigue. "Can't leave it half done." "That's what you said 6 hours ago," Nina replied. "I'm reading dangerous fatigue levels. Come in now, or I'll have security drag you in." Jake laughed weakly. "You'd have to catch me first." "Don't test me, Anderson. We've already had 3 workers collapse this week. We can't save the Vexari if we kill ourselves trying." Reluctantly, Jake secured his tools and headed for the airlock. As he floated through the station's corridors, he passed dozens of other workers heading out for their shifts. Humans, all of them, pushing themselves to their limits and beyond. In the medical bay, Nina ran scans while shaking her head. "You've lost 8 pounds in 2 weeks. Your cortisol levels are through the roof." 3 billion lives, Jake said simply. "Worth a few sleepless nights." Nina sighed, injecting him with a vitamin booster. "Heroes are useless if they're dead." 6 hours minimum sleep, then you can go back out. Meanwhile, at the Europa Deep Space Communication Center, a different kind of drama was unfolding. The Galactic Council had called an emergency session, and their representatives were not happy. Ambassador Kate Johnson stood before the holographic council, her face calm despite the hostility radiating from the alien delegates. The Altarian ambassador's feathers stood on end, while the Zentari's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. This reckless endeavor threatens the stability of the entire sector. The Altarian squawked. The resource drain alone could trigger an economic cascade. That hasn't happened, Kate interrupted smoothly. Our economy is adapting. Employment is at an all-time high. Innovation is skyrocketing. You're disrupting established protocols, the Zentari chimed, their voice like breaking glass. The council decided the Vexari situation was unmanageable. Your defiance sets a dangerous precedent. Kate's smile never wavered. The council decided to let 3 billion sentients die. We decided otherwise. If that's defiance, so be it. You'll fail, the Melodian representative sang mournfully. The mathematics are clear, you cannot build enough ships in time. Watch us, Kate replied. Back in the Sol system, humanity was doing exactly that, proving the mathematics wrong. The asteroid belt had become a mining frenzy, with automated drones working alongside human operators to extract unprecedented amounts of raw materials. The Belter Union had not only met their quotas, but exceeded them by 40%. Lieutenant Dan Foster sat in the pilot's seat of the test vessel Persistence, preparing for another jump calculation trial. The route to the Vexari system was treacherous, with 3 unstable stars creating gravitational anomalies that made standard navigation impossible. Jump calculation attempt number 47, Dan announced to the recording system. Adjusting for temporal flux in Sector 7. His co-pilot, Lieutenant Eva Price, monitored the sensors. Gravitational waves are spiking again. The dying star is getting more unstable. Dan input new variables into the navigation computer. Each failed attempt had taught them something new about the chaotic space around the Vexari system. Every problem has a solution. We just haven't found it yet. The computer says this route has a 60% chance of tearing the ship apart, Eva noted. Better than yesterday's 90%, Dan grinned. Progress. They initiated the jump simulation. For 30 seconds, the computers ran calculations that would have taken other species systems hours to process. Then, successful route found, Eva shouted. 87% survival probability. Dan immediately transmitted the data to Fleet Command. Persistence to base, we've got a viable route. Repeat, we have a path to the Vexari system. The news spread through the human colonies like wildfire. They could reach the Vexari. The rescue was possible. But challenges kept mounting. In the Luna shipyards, Chief Martinez faced a crisis. The modular life support systems weren't integrating properly with Vexari hibernation requirements. The atmosphere mix keeps destabilizing, reported Dr. Helen Park, the lead life support engineer. Vexari needs 17% methane, but it's reacting with our carbon scrubbers. Paul studied the data, his mind racing. What if we don't scrub it? What if we use their natural process? Their natural? Helen's eyes widened. Biofilters. The Vexari themselves process atmosphere through their skin. Within hours, they had redesigned the system to use Vexari biological processes as part of the life support loop. It was unconventional, even bizarre by galactic standards, but it worked. Ambassador Zix watched these developments with growing amazement. He'd requested permission to visit the shipyards and now floated beside Admiral Chen as she inspected the progress. Your workers, Zix said, his tentacles curling in confusion. They work until they collapse. They solve problems that should take months in mere days. How? Lisa smiled. Humans are stubborn. We don't like being told something can't be done. But the cost to your people is freely given. Lisa interrupted gently. Every worker here volunteered. No one was forced. They're here because they choose to be. As they watched, a massive engine module was maneuvered into place on a half-completed ship. Workers swarmed over it, connecting power conduits and fuel lines with practiced efficiency. In our culture, Zix said slowly. Efficiency comes from order, from following established procedures. Humans thrive on chaos, Lisa explained. When procedures fail, we improvise. When tools break, we make new ones. When math says it's impossible, we find new math. A comm unit beeped. Lisa answered, listened, then smiled broadly. Hull production just hit 200% of projected capacity. We're ahead of schedule. Zix's skin swirled with colors humans had learned meant awe. You're actually going to do it. You're going to save us all. That's the plan, Lisa confirmed. In 8 months, the first wave of ships will be ready. By month 11, we'll have the full fleet. Around them, the greatest industrial effort in human history continued. Workers pushed past exhaustion, engineers solved impossible problems, and pilots charted paths through unstable space. The Galactic Council watched in disbelief as humanity did what they had declared impossible. The ships took shape, ungainly and purely functional, but beautiful in their purpose. Each vessel represented hope, determination, and the human refusal to accept defeat. As another shift change occurred, fresh workers replaced exhausted ones. But even those going off duty often stayed to help, unable to step away from the monumental task. 3 billion lives became their rallying cry, and humanity answered, challenge accepted. The first wave of ships hung in space near Jupiter like metal mountains against the stars. 127 vessels, each designed to carry millions of Vexari in hibernation pods. They weren't pretty, bare metal boxes with engines, no windows, no luxuries, but they were hope made real. Captain Sam Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the lead ship, renamed Hope Eternal for this mission. Around him, his crew made final preparations. Every human wore a reinforced EVA suit, protection against the radiation that would plague their journey. All systems green, reported his first officer, Commander Jack Murphy. Fleet reports ready for jump. Sam nodded, his jaw tight. They'd trained for months, run countless simulations, but this was real. 3 billion lives depended on them executing. Perfectly. Ambassador Zix, you should return to your quarters, Sam said to the Vexari floating beside him. Once we jump, radiation levels will spike. Zix's tentacles curled in what humans had learned was determination. I stay here. My people need to see me standing with humanity when we come for them. The jump alarm sounded. Across the fleet, final checks were completed. Then Sam gave the order that would begin the largest rescue operation in galactic history. All ships initiate jump sequence, time to bring them home. Space twisted. The fleet vanished from Jupiter space and reappeared in a hell of radiation and stellar chaos. The Vexari sun writhed in its death throes, sending out waves of energy that would have killed most species instantly. Radiation at 300% of safe levels, Jack reported, his voice calm despite the readings. Shields holding. Through the view screen they could see Vexar Prime, a world being slowly cooked by its dying star. The planet's surface glowed with heat, its oceans boiling away, and everywhere the sensors showed life signs. 3 billion Vexari waiting for salvation. Comm channels open, the communications officer announced. The Vexari are broadcasting. The main screen filled with images from the planet's surface. Millions of Vexari stood in organized groups at designated evacuation points. Despite the hellish conditions, they waited with perfect discipline, their young and eggs protected in the centers of each group. Sam activated the fleet-wide comm. All ships begin evacuation protocol. Medical teams monitor hibernation induction. Let's do this by the numbers, people. The shuttles launched, hundreds of smaller craft departing from the massive ships. Each shuttle was piloted by humans in radiation-hardened suits, their bodies able to withstand doses that would kill other species. Dr. Ellen Moore led the medical team on Shuttle Alpha 7. As they descended through the turbulent atmosphere, she watched her team prepare the hibernation systems. They'd practiced this thousands of times, but reality was always different. The shuttle touched down in a plaza filled with waiting Vexari. The heat was incredible. Even through their suits, the humans could feel it. But they worked without pause, Opening the cargo bays and extending the loading ramps. Move in family groups, Ellen announced through the translator. Younglings first, then eggs, then adults. Stay calm, we have room for everyone. The Vexari moved with surprising grace, their tentacles carrying children in egg sacs as they filed into the shuttle. Ellen watched their life signs carefully as the hibernation fields activated, slowing their metabolism to near zero. How do you work in such conditions? Asked a Vexari elder as Ellen helped secure his family's egg cluster. Humans are stubborn, Ellen replied, echoing what had become their unofficial motto. Plus, we evolved on a planet that tried to kill us. This is just Tuesday for us. The loading continued with mechanical precision. When one shuttle filled, it launched and another took its place. The humans worked tirelessly, their enhanced endurance pushing them through conditions that would have felled any other species. But problems arose. On the northern continent, a massive solar flare struck just as shuttles were loading. The radiation surge overloaded several ship systems. Shuttles Gamma 3 through Gamma 7 are down, reported the fleet coordinator. Radiation fried their navigation. Captain Rodriguez didn't hesitate. Redirect Beta Squadron. Manual piloting authorized. Sir, manual piloting in this radiation will be dangerous, yes. But leaving those Vexari will be fatal. Our pilots know the risks. Across the evacuation zones, human pilots performed acts of insane bravery. When automated systems failed, they flew by instinct. When radiation blocked communications, they used visual signals. When landing zones became unstable, they hovered while Vexari jumped aboard. Lieutenant Dan Foster piloted one of the manual control shuttles, his hands steady on the controls despite the radiation alarms screaming around him. "Come on, girl," he muttered to his ship. "Just a little farther." Below 10,000 Vexari waited on a platform that was slowly sinking into a lava flow. Dan brought the shuttle down through air that burned with stellar radiation, the ship's hull glowing cherry red from heat. "Can't land," he reported. "Platforms, too unstable. Going to hover. They'll have to jump." It was insane. The Vexari would have to leap across molten rock into a shuttle bay, while stellar winds tried to tear the ship from the sky. But Dan held the ship steady as Vexari after Vexari made the desperate jump, their tentacles stretching to grab the loading ramp. "That's the last one," his crew chief shouted. "Go, go, go!" Dan pulled up just as the platform collapsed entirely, molten rock spraying where they'd been seconds before. The shuttle clawed its way back to space, its hull scarred but intact, its cargo bay filled with saved lives. Hour after hour, the evacuation continued. Humans pushed themselves beyond all reasonable limits. When suit cooling systems failed, they worked in temperatures that baked them inside their armor. When radiation exposure reached critical levels, they rotated out only long enough for anti-radiation drugs, then went back. The Galactic Council watched through long-range sensors, their disbelief turning to something like awe. The Altarian. Ambassador's feathers lay flat in amazement. They're actually doing it. The humans are succeeding where we calculated failure was certain. On the planet's surface, the last evacuation zone prepared for departure. A Vexari matriarch, one of their eldest, paused before boarding the final shuttle. She turned to Captain Rodriguez, who had come down personally for the last pickup. "Why?" she asked simply. "Why risk so much for strangers?" Sam helped her toward the shuttle ramp. "Because you needed help. Because we could help. Sometimes it's that simple." As the last shuttle lifted off, the Vexari sun gave one final massive flare. The radiation pulse was so intense it overloaded sensors across the system. But the human fleet was already jumping away, their cargo holds filled with 3 billion sleeping refugees. They'd done it. Despite every calculation, every prediction of failure, every reasonable argument against it, humanity had saved an entire species. As the fleet emerged in safe space, chatter erupted across comm channels. Tired cheers, exhausted laughter, the sound of humans who had pushed past impossible and found victory on the other side. "Fleet Admiral," Sam reported to Lisa Chen, his voice hoarse. "Evacuation complete. 3 billion souls secured. We're bringing them home." In the silence that followed, Sam could almost hear the universe itself taking notice. Humanity had just changed the rules of what was possible. Luna City had transformed beyond recognition. Where once stood military bases and mining operations, vast transparent domes now sheltered entire Vexari cities. The moon's lower gravity suited the aquatic aliens better than Earth's pull, and humanity had sacrificed much of their lunar territory without hesitation. Ambassador Zik stood in the grand plaza of New Vexar, watching his people adapt to their new home. Around him, Vexari children played in specially designed pools, their tentacles creating rainbow patterns in the treated water. Human and Vexari engineers worked side by side, installing atmosphere processors that would maintain the perfect methane-oxygen mix. "It's remarkable," said President Laura Washington, who had come for the dedication ceremony. 6 months ago, this was a mining complex. Now it's a thriving city." Zix's skin rippled with colors of gratitude, patterns that humans had learned to read. "Your people gave up their lunar holdings for strangers. This generosity is unprecedented." Laura smiled. "Humanity learned long ago that the universe is too dangerous to face alone. Today you needed us. Tomorrow we might need you." The ceremony drew delegations from across the galaxy. Even the Galactic Council had come, their earlier opposition replaced by something like embarrassed respect. The Altarian ambassador approached Admiral Lisa Chen, his feathers drooping in what humans recognized as humility. "We were wrong," the Altarian said simply, "about the mission and about humanity. Your species achieved what our mathematics declared impossible." Lisa sipped her coffee, real Earth coffee, her one luxury during the grueling rescue operation. "Mathematics only shows probabilities. It doesn't account for determination." "We called you reckless," the Zentari ambassador added, their crystalline form pulsing with soft light. "We now see it was courage. The galaxy needs to recalculate its opinion of humanity." Nearby, Dr. Amy Parker worked with Vexari scientists in the new joint research facility. The knowledge exchange had already produced breakthroughs that would have taken decades otherwise. Vexari biotech combined with human engineering was creating medical advances that would benefit every species in the galaxy. "Your hibernation technology," Amy explained to her Vexari colleague, Dr. Rix. "We've adapted it for long-range human space travel. Journey times that were impractical are now possible." Rix's tentacles curled in excitement. "And your radiation shielding allowed us to save biological samples from our homeworld. Our ecosystem will survive because of human stubbornness." In the Refugee Processing Center, Captain Sam Rodriguez helped the last group of Vexari awaken from hibernation. After months of work, every single refugee had been successfully revived and settled. Not one life lost, an achievement that defied all predictions. "Welcome to your new home," Sam said to a Vexari family, his translator converting the words. "The adjustment period can be challenging, but you're safe now." The Vexari patriarch's main eyes focused on Sam. "You were at the final evacuation. You came down to the surface yourself." Sam nodded. "Couldn't ask my crews to take risks I wouldn't take myself." "The radiation levels..." The Vexari skin flickered with concern. "Our scans show you received enough to shorten your lifespan." "Maybe," Sam shrugged. "But 3 billion people are alive because we didn't let that stop us. Fair trade, I'd say." In the human quarter of Luna City, a memorial wall listed the names of those who had paid the ultimate price. 43 humans had died during the rescue, mostly from radiation exposure, some from accidents during the frantic construction period. Each name was etched in steel and Vexari crystal, a permanent reminder of the cost of hope. Jake Anderson stood before the memorial, his arm around Dr. Nina Roberts. His friend Pete's name was on that wall, killed when a hull section explosive decompressed during construction. "He volunteered for the most dangerous assignments," Jake said quietly. "Always said the risk was worth it." Nina squeezed his shoulder. "They all did. Every person on this wall chose to be there knowing the danger." A young Vexari approached them, her tentacles moving in the gesture of respect. "Excuse me," she said through a translator. Are you the humans who built our ships? Jake nodded. I worked on hull assembly. The young Vexari's skin blazed with brilliant colors. My entire family lives because of those ships. My grandparents, my parents, my siblings, all saved because humans did the impossible. She performed the deep bow of her people. We will remember forever. As years passed, the partnership between humans and Vexari grew stronger. Vexari biotechnology revolutionized human medicine. Human engineering gave the Vexari the tools to spread across new worlds. Together, they achieved things neither species could have managed alone. The phrase, human impossible, entered galactic vocabulary, meaning a task that seemed impossible but that humans would attempt anyway. More importantly, it became a symbol of hope for threatened species across the galaxy. When the Korvathi faced a plague, when the Helix Nebula collapsed and endangered 3 systems, when raiders threatened peaceful worlds, they all knew who to call. The Deathworlders, they would say. The ones who don't believe in impossible. Ambassador Zix, now elderly by Vexari standards, often told younglings stories of the Great Rescue. He would gather them in the memorial garden where earth flowers grew alongside Vexari coral and speak of humanity's gift. When the universe tells you something is impossible, he would say, his aged tentacles still graceful, find a human. They will either prove the universe wrong or die trying, usually the former. One day, a young Vexari asked him, "But why did they help us? We were strangers. They had nothing to gain." Zix's skin rippled with the colors of deep understanding. That is the most human thing of all. They helped because we needed help. They saved us because they could. In their language, they have a word: compassion. It means caring for others even when logic says you shouldn't. The memorial garden had a new addition now, a statue depicting a human and a Vexari standing together, looking up at the stars. The inscription, written in every known language, read, "In memory of those who made the impossible possible, in celebration of those who chose hope over fear, in recognition that together we are stronger than apart." As the sun set over Luna City, an artificial sunset carefully timed to help both species maintain their circadian rhythms, children played in the parks. Human and Vexari young ones chased each other through the low-gravity playgrounds, their laughter mixing in the recycled air. To them, this was normal. To them, humans and Vexari had always been friends. Admiral Lisa Chen, now retired, watched from a bench as her granddaughter played with Vexari children. The universe had changed because humanity had refused to accept the word impossible. 3. Billion souls lived because humans had looked at overwhelming odds and said, "Challenge accepted." And somewhere in the galaxy, another species faced extinction. Another impossible situation arose. Another call for help went out into the void. Humanity was ready, they always were.